Hello, my name's Sharon and my channel's Budget Crafty Mama. Today I'm going to be making a blanket for a friend who's having a baby. And I'm going to be using this fleece. It's beautiful fleece. It's got puppies on one side with stars and balls. And then on the other side it's just got stars and balls. And I'm going to be making like a patchwork patch for it to go on one side, and then this is going to go on the other side. I'll reposition the camera and I'll show you how I'm sorting out my squares and getting ready to do the patchwork. So I'm just going to put that to side. And then I've got these patchwork squares that I've bought. And I don't know if you can see the design on them. They've got little goats and dogs and dog houses and chickens and trees and stuff. And then there's some plain coloured ones as well. So these are what I'm going to be using to make the quilt. So what I need to do now is lay them out in the pattern that I want them to go into. So I've got them set out in the colours, and I've already decided it's going to be 6 squares wide by 8 squares long. So I've got 6 different sorts. Don't know if you can see this. I've got 6 different sorts and I've got 8 of each. So now I've got to do is just lay out a pattern. So I'm just going to move this out of the way. I'm just going to lay myself out a pattern on the table. And you can do this however you want. You could just do 2 colours, or you could do 3 colours, however many you want. And the other thing I'm going to do is, as I lay them out, I'm going to make sure that I've got them up the way I want them to be. Yes, I think I like it with the lines going that way. So I'm going to keep laying those out, and then I'll come back to you when I've finished. Right, so as you can see, I've laid all those out. So now the next stage is, I don't know if you can see the top of those, is I'm going to go along the rows at the top and I'm just going to label them. So I'm just going to put 1 to 6. I've just got some stickers and I've just wrote 1 through 6 on the stickers to number each row, so that I don't get them muddled up, because otherwise my pattern won't look right when I finished it. So, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick each row up in order. So I'm just going to pick them up and stack them on top of each other in order. So that's the first row. So that's the second row. I've got them all numbered and ready to go. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the sewing machine and I'm going to take stack number 1 and stack number 2. I'm going to take the top 2. I'm going to sew them 1/4 inch, and without cutting them off I'm just going to chain stitch and sew the next 2, and I'm going to do that with the whole of this pile. So I'll go and set up at the sewing machine and then I'll show you what I'm doing. Right, so as you can see, I'm back at my sewing machine. I've got a 1/4 inch foot on my machine, but you don't need a 1/4 inch foot. You can just work out roughly what a 1/4 inch is. You don't also need to do a 1/4 inch. you could do whatever you want as long as you do all the squares the same seam allowance. That's the main thing. So as you can see, I've got my squares here. I've got my stack number 1 in position and my stack number 2 in position. I've also put ready all my other stacks, and as you can see through the sticky label of each one, I've put a pin in them. I've left the stack of the particular one together, and I've just put a pin through the number label just in case I get sidetracked and I can't get on with these at night. The stacks aren't going to get mixed up, they're not going to get knocked on the floor and all mixed up, and I'm going to have to redo my pattern. They're all stacked up ready so that when I can get back to it, it's all ready to go. So I'm basically just going to start off with taking the top one off number 1 and the top one off stack number 2, and I'm just going to line them up together. Now you can pin these if you want to. I'm not going to bother. I'm just going to line them up. And I'm just going to sew a 1/4 inch all the way down. And then I'm just going to pick up the next 2 in order. So the first one off number 1 and then number 2 on top of it. And I'm just going to line those up. Make sure that they're lined up as good as I can get them. And then I'm just going to feed that straight through. I'm not going to cut the previous ones off, I'm going to chain stitch, and this is what's going to keep my rows in order. And then just keep going like that. It's as simple as that. I'm going to finish doing these stacks, and then I'm going to show you what I'm going to do with the next lot. Right, so I've just sewn my last set of squares, so I'm going to raise my needle and I'm just going to trim it off the machine. But I'm not going to cut these apart. I'm going to keep these in a nice long chain, and I'm going to go back to number 1. And as you can see, I've got my numbers on, they're nice sewn together. I'm just going to put that on my knee for a minute, and I'm going to get stack number 3 ready. I'm going to take the pin out. I'm going to take the sticker off number 2 because it's getting in my way. And then as you can see, I've got this. So I'm just going to take the first one and I'm going to add number 3 to it. And I'm just going to line it up. I've got the next one, so I'm just going to open those up, and I'm just going to add the next one to that. And I'm just going to chain stitch that one. And I'm just going to keep going doing that. So I'm just going to get the next one, I'm going to open it up, the next one to it. Make sure it's lined up properly. And I'm just going to keep doing that till I get to the bottom of this row, and then I'll come back. Right, so now you can see I've done that, but as you can see you've got 3 sewn at the top, but then you've got the next ones joined to them. And then you've got those 3 sewn together and the next one joined, and they're like a long chain. So it keeps them all in order. So you're not going to make a mistake and sew the wrong one to it. So I'm going to just put that down there to keep it in place for a moment. And then I'm going to get stack number 4. And I'm going to do exactly the same thing again. I'm going to pull the label off that one, because they just get in the way. And pull the label off stack number 4. And then I'm just going to line the first one out of stack number 4 up with the first one out of stack number 3 that I've already sewn on. And you just keep going like that with each stack. You just start at the top again and you just sew all the way down. And if you've kept your squares in nice order, you're not going to get all mixed up, and it'll go quite smoothly for you. So I just chain sew the whole thing together, so it's all linked together. I'm not going to lose track of what's going where. And as you go on, you can see your pattern beginning to form. There you go. And you just keep opening them up, take the next one off the pile and sew that on. And as you can see, once you've got your squares cut out and ready to go, it's not really a massive job, depending on the size of the quilt you're wanting to make. So, I mean, obviously if you're making a king size quilt, it's going to take you a long time to do this. Alright, so I'm just going to keep going with this, and then I'm going to come back when I've nearly finished sewing all the first row of squares together, and then show you how I move on to the next stage. Right, so as you can see, I've sewn them together widthwise, but they're still not sewn together lengthwise. As you can see, they've got a gap in them. Now, the next stage is we need to iron the seams on the back, so you need to turn it over. And what I'm going to do with this is, if I bring it down to the top I can show you. On the top row I'm going to push all the seams to the right. Yeah, and I'm going to iron all the seams going that way. And on the next row I'm going to iron all the seams coming this way. And then on the next row I'm going to do them all going that way again. So I'm just going to sort of lie them flat, every one flat, so that it's pointing that way. And then on the next row I'm going to come the other way. So in each row you want to go opposite ways with the seams, so that when you come to put them together they'll lie flat, they'll lie nice. You could try opening the seams and doing it, but it's very fiddly and they don't always like to lie like that. And because you've only done a 1/4 inch seam, it's really hard to do it that way. So what you want to do is on the top row go to the right, on the next row go to the left, on the next row go to the right, and I'll alternate them. So I'm just going to get my small ironing board out and show you what I mean going to start with the top row. And I'm going to just grab my iron. And on the top row I'm just going to press all my seams going that way. And then I'm just going to move that up. So next row I'm going that way. And you just keep going like that, doing it alternative directions, and then I'll come back and show you the next step. Right, so I've done that and I've turned it back over, and as you can see on every other one I've put a number. So on every other row, I don't know if you can see this, I've put number 1, then I've missed one, then I've put number 2, then I've missed one, then I've put number 3, missed one, number 4, and missed one. I don't know if you can see that. And I'm just going to pop pins in those numbers because I don't want them coming off. And then what I'm going to do is in between the two, so you can see this. So I've got the top row. Bring this down a bit so you can see it. I've got the top row here and the second row, and I'm going to snip in between those. So I've got the 2 top rows still as one piece. You see that? So that's number 1. And then I'm going to do the same with this second one. I'm going to snip down there, so I've got 2 still together. As you can see, they're still attached together. So that's number 2. And then I've just got 4 left, so I'm going to snip down the middle of those. Which will give me number 3 and number 4. And then what I'm going to do with those is I'm going to fold them over on each other. I'm going to line up my seams as accurately as I possibly can, and I'm going to put a pin in there. And then I'm going to move on to the next one, and I'm going to put a pin. So that's my first one, all pinned and ready to go to the machine. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take it to the machine, and I'm just going to sew the 1/4 inch all the way down on that one. Same as I have the others, I'm just going to line it up there as well. Put a pin in the beginning. So that's the first one pinned. So I'm going to do exactly the same with the other 3. I'm going to line all my seams up Right, so I'm just going to do that with the others. I'm going to put the pins in all 4 of them, and then I'm going to go over to the machine and show you how I'm going to sew them together. Alright, so I've got those all pinned together, and I'm just going to do exactly what I did before. I'm just going to sew these 2 together, taking my pins out as I go along, and I'm just going to be doing a 1/4 inch seam again. And I'm just going to be making sure as I go down that my seams are nicely lined up. Right, so that's the first 2 sewn together. So I'm just going to do exactly what I did before, and I'm just going to chain stitch them. So I've got two together there sewn together, and I've got another 2. And I'm just going to do that with all 4 that I've got piece in. Right, so I'm just going to carry on with this. I'm going to sew all of them in a chain, and then I'm going to come and show you what the next stage is going to be. Right, so that's that done. I've got all of them sewn together, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go down and I'm going to snip them apart. Remember, I've still got the numbers on them, so I know which order they're in. And I'm just going to... Right. So as you can see, it's beginning to come together a bit. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take number 1, and I'm going to take number 2, and I'm going to pin them together on this side. And I'm going to do exactly what I did with the other ones. I'm just going to line up my seams perfectly. And put a pin in. I'm going to do the same all the way down this one. I'm going to do that with that one, and then I'm going to take number 3 and number 4, and I'm going to do exactly the same thing with that one. I'm going to pin those 2 together. I'm going to make sure I'm lining up my seams on each and every one. I'm going to carry on with this, and then when I've pinned all those together, I'm going to come back and show you what I do. Right, so now I've done that, I'm just going to do exactly the same thing again. I'm just going to stitch all the way down the length of this one. So now I've finished that one, I'm just going to go on and I'm going to chain stitch these 2 together. So that was number 1 and 2, this is number 3 and 4. Right, so now I've finished that, and I've got them in 2 long strips. I'm literally just going to chop them in half and repeat the same process. I'm going to open this one up, and I'm going to open this one up, and I'm going to pin them together at the top ends where the numbers are. And I'm just going to go all the way down here again, making sure I'm matching my seams up as perfectly as I can. And just popping a pin in. And then when I've done that, I'm just going to sew that one together, and then it'll all be in one big piece. And I'll bring you back and show you what it looks like when I've finished sewing it all together. Laid it on the fleece that I'm going to be attaching it to, with the wrong sides together, and then I've just gone along on every other square. I've just put a pin in just to hold it in place, and then I've gone all the way around the edge putting pins in just to hold it in place. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut around the edge. I'm going to cut a 2.5 inch border all the way around the edge. I don't know if I can zoom in on this. I've got my ruler here, and I'm just going to cut all the way up the side, cutting myself a 2.5 inch border all the way around, because all the way around I want it to have a 1 inch border. So I'm cutting 2.5 because I'm going to fold it over onto it. So you don't want to stretch this fleece out of shape, you just want to get it nice and flat on the table and just cut as close to the tape as you can get. Making sure I've got my 2.5 inch border. Now this is lovely fleece, but it doesn't half make a mess when you cut it. It's really frays. I'm just going to move that up and line it up on the 2.5 inch. So I can cut all the way to the end. Going off the table a little bit here. And I've already lined the top up with 2 inches, so I'm just going to do that all the way round, and then I'll come back when I finish that. Right, so I've done that all the way round, and what I intend to do is I intend to fold this over and bring it over and stitch it on like that, so you've got a border of the fleece all the way round, and then when you look on the back you've got fleece on the back. So literally when I'm sewing it up I'm going to be turning it over 1/2 inch and then making it so that I've got 1 inch border all the way around to trim the front. So what we're going to do next, the trouble with this fleece is it does make a mess. What we're going to do next, I'm going to try and reposition the camera down into this corner so you can see. On my ruler I've got like little lines, and they're like 30-degree lines, 45-degree, 60-degree lines. What I'm going to do is I'm going to line the 45-degree line up with the edge of my material, and so that the corner is sitting on the 1 1/4 inch mark. I'm just going to line that up nice. So try and zoom in on that. So there's my 45-degree line, and there's the 1 1/4 inch mark, so they're sort of crossing over on the corner. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my rotary cutter and I'm just going to cut this corner off like that. So it's giving me a nice clean corner, and I'm going to do that on all 4 corners. And then when I've done that, I'm going to take this to the sewing machine and I'm just going to match those corners up, and I'm just going to do a 1/4 inch seam along there, which when that's turned around will give me a nice shape to the corner. So I'm just going to finish cutting all these and then I'll take you over to the machine. Right, as you can see, I'm at the table and I've got the right sides together and I've just pinned it on that corner that I've cut away. So if I open it up, you can see there's where the corner is, and I cut the corner off at a 45-degree angle, and then I'm just putting those corners together lining them up and putting them together. And then I'm just going to sew a 1/4 inch seam just along there. So I've still got my 1/4 inch foot on because it just makes it a little bit easier. Okay, you might need to just work to get it to feed through a little bit to start with. Stitch at the end just to make sure it's caught nicely. And then I'm just going to snip all my ends off. And as you can see, we've sewn that together, so when we turn it the right way round, it will give us that nice square corner. Okay, so I'm going to do that with the rest, and that's the second one done. So when you turn it the right way round, you'll see it gives you that nice squared off corner, and then we're going to be turning this under, so it'll give us a nice trim to it. So I'm just going to do the rest of those and then I'm going to show you what else we're going to be doing. Right, so now I've done that, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, as you can see where I've got all the pins in here, I'm just going to run some stitches in the ditches of the patchwork. So in between where I was sewing the patchwork, I'm just going to sew some lines sort of on every fourth one, rather every second one, just to secure the patchwork into the fleece at the back. So I'm going to miss the first two and then I'm going to do in the ditch on this one. I'm going to line it up. I'm just going to back stitch a couple of stitches at the beginning, and then I'm just going to sew very carefully so that I'm doing it in like the seam between the two patches, so it's not really showing up a great deal. And because this is fleece, it will kind of, the stitchings will be hidden at the back, but it will hold the fleece together slightly better. And it make it easier for washing, because obviously if this is going to be a baby's blanket or like a tummy time blanket, it's going to get spit up on a lot, so it's going to be needing to wash it quite a bit. So you don't want it going all sort of out of shape and, you know, sort of not looking very nice after the first time it's been washed. You want it to try and stay in shape. You also don't want to give her the marathon task having to get it back into shape. So you want to make it so that it's you know, sort of nice and easy for her to wash and clean. Right, and then when you get to the end, I'm just snapping it off. I'm going to the next one, and as you can see, you can't really see the stitching on the top, and the stitching on the bottom is sort of hidden by the fleece, so it's a nice clean stitch. So I'm going to turn it around and do the other side now. I've already done the middle one. Right, I'm just going to carry on with this. When I've done them all widthways, I'm then going to put some in lengthways as well, just to get it nice and secure. So when I finish this, I'll come back to you. Right, so as you can see, I've finished stitching that. On the back side of it, if you look carefully, you might be able to see, you can just see the stitch lines very faintly, but they will sort of disappear over about a week or so. And I've just sort of done big squares on it. So now what I've done is I've just gone round and I've just folded over the edge all the way round, and I've just pinned it all the way round, and I'm just going to go round all the way round the edge, and I'm just going to be sewing all along this edge, right on the edge, so that it's all nice and trimmed up. So you can see where I've folded it all over, and I've just popped pins in, and I'm just going to go and sew all the way along this edge so that it's nicely trimmed, and that's basically there is to it. I'm just going to take this to the machine and sew it all the way round, all around the edge, and finish it off, ready to give to my friend. Right, as you can see, there's the finished quilt. It's nice and soft. It's not too thick. With today's central heating, I don't think we need great big thick quilts. So this is just like a nice blanket. It'd be perfect size for in a cot or on the floor as a tummy time blanket. So that's all finished now. I'm going to give that to my friend at the weekend, and I'm sure she'll get a great deal of use out of it. So that's my blanket all finished. If you've liked this video, please press the subscribe and the like button, and I'd love your comments in the bottom. It would be brilliant. So thanks for watching. Bye.